25 health habits once lived in nearly every American kitchen, garden, and front porch. Ordinary rituals your grandparents never questioned until the modern world told them to stop. From tonics mixed at the counter to what simmered on the stove, from the way families gathered at supper to when the lights went out at night, these were not medical breakthroughs. They were just life. Then processed foods arrived. Convenience culture took hold, and one by one, these practices quietly disappeared. Now, decades later, peer-reviewed research is pulling them back into the light. We're walking through all 25, starting with a folk remedy so popular it sold 1 million copies in one book, a 2-ingredient tonic a Vermont country doctor swore by. Apple cider vinegar, once known as Honegar in mid-century kitchens, was more than a pantry item. It was a daily ritual woven into rural American life. Dr. DeForest C. Jarvis, a Vermont physician, championed the blend of raw apple cider vinegar and honey in his 1958 bestseller, Folk Medicine. The recipe was simple: 2 tablespoons of vinegar, a spoonful of honey, diluted with water and sipped before meals. Jarvis's faith in this tonic for digestion and stamina resonated across the country, with over 1 million copies of his book sold. Housewives packed it in lunch pails, and grandmothers reached for it at the first sign of a sore throat. By the late 1950s, Honegar was a fixture from Vermont farmhouses to California suburbs. Yet as frozen dinners and modern medicine gained ground, folk remedies like Honegar faded. By 1975, only 5% of households still used the vinegar tonic, a steep drop from its earlier popularity. For decades, the medical community dismissed it as little more than a relic of old wives' tales. That skepticism began to shift with new research. In 2020, a randomized controlled trial led by Carol Johnston revisited the old kitchen remedy. 40 adults with type 2 diabetes drank 2 tablespoons of diluted apple cider vinegar before meals for 8 weeks. Their post-meal blood sugar spikes fell by almost 30% compared to those who drank only water. This result caught the attention of clinicians used to more modest effects from dietary tweaks. Today, continuous glucose monitors chart the same gentle curve Jarvis once described, showing how vinegar slows the release of sugar into the bloodstream. For those managing blood sugar, the effect is both practical and familiar. Still, it's important to consult a doctor before starting, especially for anyone with digestive issues or chronic health conditions. The story of Honegar is a reminder that some kitchen rituals, once dismissed, are finding new life as science circles back to the wisdom of the past. In second place, cod liver oil stands as the spoonful that every kitchen in the 1950s seemed to keep tucked away for winter. For many, the memory is vivid. Thick glass bottles lined up on pantry shelves, a heavy silver spoon, and that unmistakable briny taste that sent shivers down the spine. Mothers and grandmothers swore by it, chasing the dose with a sugar cube or a wedge of orange, convinced it built strong bones and kept the heart steady through long New England winters. In Maine fishing towns and Midwest farmhouses alike, cod liver oil was a daily ritual, handed out before breakfast as a shield against rickets, brittle bones, and the aches of age. By the early 1960s, the tide was turning. The American Heart Association, backed by new industry-funded guidelines, began to warn against animal fats and cholesterol. Cod liver oil, once a badge of household prudence, was quietly nudged aside by corn oil, margarine, and the promise of a low-fat diet. Supermarket shelves shifted and the ritual faded. By 1975, less than 1 in 10 households still kept a bottle on hand. The taste, for many, became a relic of a stricter, more old-fashioned time. Yet the story did not end there. Recent decades have seen a quiet comeback as researchers revisited the old wisdom with fresh eyes. A 2018 meta-analysis led by Dr. Dariush Mozaffarian reviewed 45 randomized trials on omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA found in cod liver oil. The findings were striking. Regular intake of these marine oils was linked to a lower risk of heart attacks and sudden cardiac death among older adults. The same supplement that once wrinkled noses at the breakfast table now receives cautious praise from cardiologists for its role in supporting cardiovascular health. Vitamin D, abundant in cod liver oil, is also recognized for maintaining bone density and reducing fracture risk in seniors, especially in northern climates where sunlight is scarce for much of the year. Modern bottles are filtered, lemon-flavored, and measured in capsules, but the core idea remains much the same as it did in the 1950s: nourishment from the sea delivered in a daily ritual. While today's guidelines are careful not to overstate the case, the evidence for omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D is now strong enough that the old cod liver oil bottle has found its way back into many medicine cabinets, if not always onto the breakfast table. And the next rediscovered practice was once a staple of every autumn cellar, bubbling away in stone crocks and bringing families together for a very different kind of health tradition. Third on our list, sauerkraut fermentation brings us back to the heart of the Pennsylvania Dutch kitchen, where autumn meant more than just falling leaves. It meant long wooden tables dusted with salt, cabbages chopped by hand, and stoneware crocks bubbling quietly in the corner. For many families, making sauerkraut was not just about preserving food for winter. It was a ritual, a gathering, and a lesson passed down from grandmothers to grandchildren. In those days, nearly a third of American households prepared their own fermented cabbage each year, with the sharp, briny aroma filling cellars and pantries from Allentown to Lancaster. But as the decades passed, convenience crept in. The rise of canned sauerkraut and the spread of Swanson's TV dinners in the 1950s made home fermentation seem old-fashioned. By 1975, only 12% of households still kept a crock in the cellar. Most kitchens traded in the slow alchemy of wild fermentation for the quick fix of store-bought jars, and the sense of community that came with it faded too. The old crocks gathered dust, and the living cultures once prized for their tang and bite slipped out of daily life. Yet the story does not end there. In recent years, modern science has circled back to those bubbling crocks and found something remarkable. A 2020 randomized controlled trial led by Dr. Maria Marco at the University of California, Davis, followed 86 adults who added home fermented sauerkraut to their diets for 8 weeks. The results were striking. Participants saw a significant increase in beneficial lactobacillus species, key players in a diverse gut microbiome. Even more, inflammatory markers in the blood dropped, suggesting that the same tangy cabbage that once graced Sunday suppers might help calm the body's hidden fires. Researchers now see fermented foods as a bridge between tradition and health, with sauerkraut leading the way. For the Pennsylvania Dutch, sauerkraut was never just a side dish. It was a symbol of resilience, thrift, and the quiet wisdom of letting nature do its work. Today, as families rediscover the joys of slow food and living cultures, the old stone crocks are making a comeback, bubbling with new promise. And just as one kitchen ritual ends, another begins, this time not with a forkful of kraut, but with a simple walk after supper, a practice that held its own quiet genius in the 1950s and is now gaining fresh attention from modern science. Third on our list, the 10-minute post-meal walk once marked the end of every family dinner in small-town America. In the 1950s, it was common to see older couples and neighbors strolling the block after supper, arms linked and voices low as the kitchen lights flickered behind them. For many, this daily ritual was less about exercise and more about settling the meal, sharing news, and letting the day's worries drift away. Dr. D.C. Jarvis, whose Vermont folk medicine shaped so many mid-century habits, often wrote about the value of gentle movement after eating, not as punishment but as a way to help the body work its food. Post-meal. The arrival of the television dinner in 1954 changed those evenings. Swanson's aluminum trays, pitched as a miracle for busy housewives, brought families from the sidewalk to the living room. By the late 1960s, the USDA recorded a sharp drop in post-meal walking, with only 21% of households keeping up the tradition. The rest found themselves drawn to the glow of the television, plates balanced on knees, and movement traded for rest. Television. Yet the old wisdom never fully disappeared. Recent research has circled back to this simple act. In 2019, a crossover trial led by Dr. Kumar at the University of Minnesota used continuous glucose monitors to track what happens when older adults walk for just 10 minutes after eating. The results were striking. Those who walked saw their 2-hour post-meal glucose curves drop by an average of 12% compared to those who remained seated. The continuous glucose graph, a new tool but one that echoes Jarvis's old intuition, shows a gentler rise and a quicker return to baseline. For seniors, this means less strain on the body's insulin response, and for families, a reason to lace up their shoes together again. Research. Today, as wearable technology brings these glucose curves into sharper focus, the humble after-dinner walk is being reappraised not as a relic, but as a low-tech, high-impact tool for daily resilience. The practice is as accessible as ever. No gym, no gadgets, just a door to open and a sidewalk to share. And as the sun sets on the old television dinner era, another practice from the 1950s, one that begins not with shoes but with sunlight, waits to step back into the light. Number 5. The 15-minute daily sun habit radiates from the memory of every front porch and backyard garden of the 1950s. Back then, seniors often began their mornings sitting by the window or stepping outside, coffee in hand, letting the sun warm their faces before chores or breakfast. For many, this was more than a pause. It was a ritual that set the rhythm for the day. Sunlight, as Dr. D.C. Jarvis quietly noted in his 1958 book, Folk Medicine, was as much a part of health as any tonic or broth. He believed that the body needed time in the open air, a chance to sync with the world's natural clock. But as the post-war years rolled on, that simple act faded. The arrival of television, air conditioning, and the lure of convenience foods drew families indoors. By the late 1960s, the U.S. Department of Agriculture recorded a steady drop in outdoor time, especially among older adults. The shift to indoor living, paired with growing warnings about skin cancer, turned sunlight from a daily friend into something to be avoided. Sunscreen commercials and shaded porches replaced the old advice to get your daily sun. Yet the science has circled back. In 2017, a cohort study led by Dr. Michael Hollick at Boston University followed over 3,000 older adults who spent at least 15 minutes a day in moderate sunlight, enough to pinken the skin but not burn. The results were striking. Participants maintained optimal vitamin D levels, supporting bone strength and immune function, without a measurable increase in skin cancer risk. Even more, those who kept this habit reported better sleep and steadier energy, a nod to the sun's quiet role in setting the body's circadian rhythm. Research now suggests that this gentle exposure helps regulate melatonin, the hormone that cues restful sleep, and may even sharpen mood as the seasons change. Today, doctors weigh the risks and benefits with care, reminding everyone to avoid midday extremes and to know their own skin's limits. But for many, the old wisdom of a morning on the porch or a short stroll in the garden now carries a new kind of validation, one grounded in both memory and modern evidence. The sun, once written off as a hazard, is being welcomed back as a gentle ally in the daily routine. And for those who remember the taste of slow-simmered soups and the comfort of a warm mug in hand, the next rediscovered practice brings us into the kitchen, where bones and patience built resilience for generations. Bone broth once simmered quietly in American kitchens, a daily ritual that connected generations. In the 1950s, bones from the butcher were never wasted. They went straight into the stock pot, covered with cold water, carrot tops, onion skins, and peppercorns. The slow bubbling on the stove filled homes with a savory aroma, and by evening a mug of broth was as comforting as a cup of coffee, especially for those seeking warmth or easy nourishment. D.C. Jarvis, writing in 1958, called bone broth a restorative, and his simple recipe became a staple from Vermont farmhouses to city apartments. The gelatin-rich broth, dense with marrow, was prized for soothing sensitive stomachs and supporting aging joints. As convenience foods took over, the stock pot faded from view. Television dinners and canned soups replaced the all-day simmer. By 1975, only a small fraction of households still made broth from scratch, and the knowledge of its benefits, especially for gut health and connective tissue, became less common. Recent research is bringing bone broth back into focus. In 2021, Dr. Wegman's randomized controlled trial followed adults who drank a daily cup of bone broth for 8 weeks. Blood tests revealed a clear rise in serum collagen markers, particularly glycine and proline, amino acids essential for building connective tissue. While the broader clinical effects are still under study, these findings suggest that the slow extraction of peptides and minerals from simmered bones may help maintain gut lining and support joint resilience. The science echoes what earlier generations sensed: broth nourishes in ways that go beyond taste. Today, home cooks are returning to the stock pot, drawn by both nostalgia and new evidence. The act of simmering bones has become a mindful kitchen ritual again, valued for its nutrient density and the promise of real nourishment. As the ladle dips into the pot, the tradition continues, setting the stage for the tools that make such rituals possible, the cookware that holds the memory of countless meals. Number 4 on our list, the seasoned cast iron skillet, once held pride of place in nearly 8 out of 10 American kitchens. In the 1950s, these heavy pans were passed down through families, their blackened surfaces telling stories of Sunday dinners and weekday breakfasts. Every home cook knew the trick. Cook a batch of tomato sauce or apples in a well-loved skillet, and a little bit of iron would transfer into the food. It was a quiet form of fortification, especially important for older adults whose diets sometimes fell short on this essential mineral. Grandmothers might not have known the word bioavailability, but they understood that a cast iron pan could help keep up strength and stamina long before anyone talked about supplements. But convenience had its own kind of pull. By the mid-1960s, glossy ads for DuPont's Teflon and 3M's non-stick pans promised an easier life. No scrubbing, no seasoning, no heavy lifting. The new cookware swept through department stores, and cast iron sales dropped by nearly half in just a decade. The pitch was simple: less oil, less mess, more modern. What the ads never mentioned was the chemical trade-off, PFAS, and other compounds that decades later would raise questions about long-term safety. Now, science is circling back to those old iron pans. Recent trials show that simmering acidic foods in cast iron can add 2 to 8 milligrams of dietary iron per serving, a real boost for anyone at risk of deficiency. One randomized study in a low-income community found that daily use of cast iron pots raised hemoglobin and ferritin, key markers of iron status, by as much as 10 to 20% over several months. For most adults, the extra iron is a help, not a hazard, though those with hereditary iron overload are advised to steer clear. The effect is especially pronounced with moist, acidic dishes. Think stews, applesauce, or tomato gravy, where the iron leaches most readily. Unlike non-stick pans, cast iron contains no PFAS, no hidden coatings, and no synthetic materials that can break down at high heat. The old skillet is as close to elemental as it gets. A single piece of metal, seasoned by time and use. It is a kitchen tool that quietly bridges nutrition and safety, connecting the past to the present with every meal. And as more families rediscover the value of hearty, home-cooked food, the cast iron pan is making its way back to the table. Next, we move from the stove to the dining room, where another 1950s ritual, one that brought everyone together at the end of the day, once shaped both health and happiness. In mid-century America, the family dinner table was a nightly gathering place, where the aroma of home-cooked meals signaled a pause in the day's rush. Parents, children, and grandparents came together, sharing stories and laughter as they passed dishes across the table. This ritual was not just about food, it was a daily reminder of belonging and stability, a space where everyone's presence mattered. Over time, though, the pace of life shifted. The arrival of TV dinners in the 1950s and the rise of busy schedules chipped away at this tradition. By the mid-1970s, only 1/3 of families still ate together most nights, down from nearly 2/3 a generation before. The kitchen table, once alive with conversation, grew quieter as convenience and individual routines took over. Yet the impact of those shared meals endures in ways science is only beginning to understand. In 2016, Dr. Lisa Berkman and her team tracked over 12,000 adults for nearly a decade, asking a simple question: how often do you eat dinner with family or close friends? The answer mattered more than anyone expected. Those who gathered for 5 or more shared meals each week had a 15% lower risk of dying from any cause, compared to those who rarely ate together. This protective effect remained even after accounting for differences in age, health, and income. Researchers point to the unique power of social connection, listening, sharing, and feeling seen at the table as a buffer against the stresses of aging. Regular family dinners have been linked to better immune function, steadier blood pressure, and improved sleep. For older adults, the benefits go beyond nutrition. The routine of sitting down together offers purpose and a sense of community that no supplement can provide. The simple act of passing bread and sharing a story becomes a quiet force for longevity. As more families rediscover the value of gathering at the table, the wisdom of this tradition stands out. Sometimes the most powerful medicine is found in the company of those who care. In mid-century America, the early dinner was more than a household routine. It was a quiet health ritual. Families often finished supper by 6, clearing the table before the evening news. For older adults, this timing was rooted in the belief that the body needed hours to digest and recover before sleep. Folk healers like Dr. D.C. Jarvis wrote about the value of letting the stomach rest, describing early supper as a way to give the body a full night to repair and rebuild. The kitchen would close as dusk settled, and the evening unfolded with chores or gentle conversation, to the body already shifting into rest mode. By the 1970s, this pattern faded. The rise of television dinners and changing work schedules pushed meals later into the night. The kitchen table lost ground to the living room couch, and late-night eating became common. For many, especially seniors, this shift brought heavier meals close to bedtime, restless sleep, and a sense that the body was working overtime long after dark. Modern research has returned to this old wisdom with new tools. In 2019, Dr. Leonie Heilbronn's team at the University of Adelaide ran a randomized controlled trial with adults who ate all meals within a 6-hour window, finishing dinner by 6 in the evening. After 5 weeks, participants' fasting insulin dropped by 20%. That was a clear sign sign that the body was handling sugar more efficiently and getting deeper rest overnight. Those following the early dinner schedule reported steadier energy and fewer nighttime awakenings. The study pointed to the body's circadian rhythm, which is tuned to digest food best during daylight. By closing the kitchen early, the body resets, repairs, and keeps blood sugar in check through the night. Time-restricted eating now finds support in clinics and research labs, echoing the habits of earlier generations. The old advice to finish supper before sunset is backed by metabolic data, suggesting that the early dinner table was a quiet strength of the 1950s household. As the evening closes, the story of simple remedies continues, moving from the dinner table to the medicine cabinet. And finally, in first place, medical-grade honey, now known as Medihoney, brings the story of folk wisdom full circle. In the 1950s, a honey poultice was a familiar sight in rural medicine chests and farmhouse kitchens. Grandmothers kept jars of raw honey on hand, swearing by its ability to draw out infection and soothe burns or scrapes. The practice went back generations, rooted in the belief that honey's natural stickiness and golden warmth could heal what modern ointments sometimes could not. For seniors, a dab of honey and a strip of cloth were as much about comfort as cure, and the ritual of tending wounds was woven into daily life. But as the decades passed, that sticky spoonful lost its place. The Kefauver-Harris Amendment of 1962 tightened the rules around what could be called medicine. Pharmacies filled with antiseptics, triple antibiotic creams, and new over-the-counter gels. By the 1970s, honey dressings were dismissed as quaint, their use dwindling to stories told in family kitchens or passed down in dog-eared home remedy books. The medical establishment focused on standardized drugs and sterile technique, left little room for something as old-fashioned as honey. Yet the story did not end there. In 2007, the FDA cleared Medihoney, the first medical-grade honey dressing for use on wounds, burns, and surgical sites. This was not just a nod to nostalgia. It was the result of rigorous testing, including a Phase 3 randomized controlled trial led by Dr. Rose Cooper. In that study, patients with chronic wounds who received Medihoney dressings saw infection rates drop by 30%, compared to those treated with standard care. The honey, sourced from manuka blossoms and carefully sterilized, created a moist environment that slowed bacterial growth and supported the body's own healing. The FDA stamp of approval marked a rare moment when a folk remedy crossed the threshold into modern evidence, meeting the agency's standards for safety and effectiveness. Today, Medihoney is stocked in hospitals and nursing homes, recommended for stubborn wounds and delicate skin. Nurses report fewer dressing changes, less pain, and a lower risk of antibiotic-resistant infections. For seniors, the return of honey to the medicine cabinet feels both familiar and new, a reminder that sometimes the old ways carry wisdom the world is only just beginning to rediscover. And as the science catches up to kitchen tradition, the story of Medihoney stands as proof. Not every home remedy was just a superstition, and some were waiting for their moment to shine again. Raw garlic, once a staple in home kitchens and folk medicine, earned its reputation for keeping blood pressure in check. Healers praised its warming bite, and for good reason. In 2016, a meta-analysis by Karen Reed reviewed 31 trials and found that raw garlic could lower systolic blood pressure by about 5 millimeters of mercury. That is a small but real shift, enough to rival some first-line medications for seniors, though not a substitute. The effect comes from allicin, which is most potent in raw cloves. While guidelines remain cautious, the research nods to garlic's modest cardiovascular power. Pumpkin seeds once lingered in American kitchens as a humble snack, their reputation for easing urinary troubles passed down quietly through generations. Folk wisdom met modern science in 2022 when the European Medicines Agency reviewed 7 randomized trials and recognized a daily 30-gram dose, about a quarter cup, for modest relief of lower urinary tract symptoms in older men. Studies showed small but real improvements in urinary flow and fewer nighttime trips to the bathroom. Today, pumpkin seeds are returning to snack bowls, valued not as a miracle, but as a simple, evidence-backed nod to practical kitchen remedies. The cold water face splash was a brisk ritual that started many mornings in the 1950s. Leaning over the sink, hands cupped, icy water dashed onto cheeks, sometimes with a gasp, sometimes with a grin. Old-timers swore it sharpened the mind and steadied nerves. A 2021 clinical trial backs up a piece of that wisdom. 30 adults, average age 68, saw their heart rates drop by about 8 beats per minute after each splash, thanks to a jolt of vagal nerve activity. The effect was brief but real, a quick, playful reset for the nervous system and a free shot of alertness. Early lights out shaped nightly routines in mid-century America, with seniors often asleep by 9 p.m., believing deep rest guarded against aging. Recent research has revived interest in this habit. In 2020, Dr. Matthew Walker's longitudinal study tracked 1,000 older adults and found that those with earlier bedtimes experienced more slow-wave sleep, the stage when the brain's glymphatic system clears amyloid, a protein tied to cognitive decline. These early sleepers showed less amyloid buildup, pointing to a nightly reset for memory and mental sharpness. The wisdom of turning in early offered real protection for the aging brain. Beef tallow and lard once defined American frying, valued for their ability to withstand high heat without breaking down. The shift came in the late 1960s when the American Heart Association, fueled by new studies and industry influence, urged families to abandon animal fats for seed oils. Yet chemistry offers a different perspective. A 2019 randomized trial led by Dr. Michaels found that beef tallow and lard generate far fewer oxidation products than polyunsaturated seed oils during repeated heating. Less oxidation means fewer unstable compounds in food, prompting nutrition researchers to reconsider the role of these traditional heat-stable fats. Raw, local honey once sat in kitchen cupboards as a trusted remedy for seasonal sniffles. Families believed a spoonful of honey from neighborhood hives could help the body adapt to local pollen. Decades later, science circled back. In 2020, Bramwell's randomized trial found that adults with seasonal allergies who took a daily spoon of raw local honey for 8 weeks reported lower allergy scores, with less sneezing and itching than those who didn't. Researchers point to the trace pollen in each jar, gently nudging the immune system. The ritual endures, a simple habit offering natural relief as seasons shift. Number 17. A cup of hot lemon water was a gentle start to many mornings in the 1950s. Before coffee took over kitchen counters, some seniors would squeeze half a lemon into warm water and sip it slowly at sunrise, believing it woke up the mind and set the body right for a day's work. The ritual was simple. No special ingredients, just a lemon, a kettle, and a quiet moment at the table. Housewives and working men alike swore by the fresh taste and the feeling of alertness it brought, even if the science was never settled. By the 1970s, as instant coffee and processed breakfast drinks arrived, the lemon water habit faded from daily life, remembered mostly in stories of simpler times. Modern research offers only modest support. A 2018 crossover study found that while hot lemon water didn't speed digestion, it did leave older adults feeling slightly more awake compared to plain water. The evidence is weak, but for many, the comfort of this morning pause was its own reward, a small, steady light to begin the day, before heavier chores or harder labor called from the fields and factories. Number 18, hard physical labor past 70 was once woven into the fabric of daily life. In the 1950s, it wasn't unusual to see older men splitting wood, hauling water, or tending gardens well into their 8th decade. Retirement didn't mean idleness. It meant shifting to chores that kept the body moving from dawn to dusk. This relentless activity, what researchers now call non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, did more than just fill the hours. It slowed the loss of muscle that comes with age, a process known as sarcopenia. Recent cohort studies, such as Friedman's analysis from 2019 of over 2,000 older adults, show that seniors who kept up with manual work maintained stronger muscles and steadier balance than those who slowed down. The difference wasn't in gym time, but in the quiet, constant effort of daily living, carrying groceries, mending fences, kneading dough. As modern conveniences replaced these routines, the benefits faded, yet the old wisdom lingers. Keeping hands and bodies busy may be one of the simplest ways to hold on to strength. After a week of hard labor, another tradition waited, one that offered rest and a different kind of renewal. Number 19, the Sunday nap carried a quiet dignity in mid-century homes, especially for those who spent the week on their feet or at the plow. After church and a hearty meal, seniors would retreat to a favorite chair or sunlit sofa, closing their eyes for half an hour while the world hushed around them. It wasn't idleness. It was a tradition rooted in the belief that a short rest could restore body and mind. By the 1970s, as weekends filled with errands and television took over the living room, the Sunday nap faded from favor. Yet recent cohort studies like Miller's 2018 analysis of over 5,000 adults suggest that a 30 to 45-minute nap may lower the risk of atrial fibrillation and keep cognition sharper in later years. Today, doctors still debate the best timing, but the old wisdom holds. A little sanctioned rest once a week might be just what the heart and the mind need to keep going strong. And when the house quieted, another gentle ritual often followed, one that brought families together in a different way. Reading aloud once filled quiet evenings, with voices carrying stories and news across generations. This habit did more than entertain. It trained memory, sharpened attention, and kept minds active long before brain games existed. As routines changed, the practice faded, but new research has revived its reputation. A 2021 randomized controlled trial found that older adults who read aloud daily for 20 minutes saw significant gains in verbal memory, including better recall and word finding. Doctors now recognize reading aloud as a simple, low-tech way to help protect against cognitive decline, offering daily mental exercise that requires nothing but a book. Mustard plasters once filled kitchens with their pungent heat, mixed by hand and pressed to the chest in the hopes of easing coughs or sore muscles. The ritual was simple, using flour, mustard, water, a cloth, and the slow warmth that followed. Over time, these poultices slipped from favor as modern medicines replaced them. A 2019 trial led by Dr. Patel tested mustard poultices on adults with mild respiratory symptoms. The results showed comfort from warmth, but no significant improvement in lung function. Today, mustard plasters linger as a nostalgic comfort, not a proven remedy for respiratory relief. Number 22. The onion poultice belonged to the folklore of kitchens in the 1950s, where a sliced onion wrapped in cloth and warmed was pressed to the skin for stubborn cuts or minor infections. Grandmothers believed the sharp aroma and gentle heat could draw out illness, a practice handed down from rural Europe and adapted to American farm life. The Kefauver-Harris Amendment tightened definitions of medicine in the early 1960s, and as a result, these home remedies faded, replaced by antibiotic ointments and sterile gauze from the drugstore. Modern researchers have revisited the old stories, including a 2018 case series by Dr. Nguyen that followed 12 adults using onion compresses for mild skin infections. Most reported symptom relief with less swelling and reduced redness, but the results were anecdotal, with no control group or rigorous testing. Today, the onion poultice stands as a humble reminder of the era's blend of resourcefulness and hope. While science has yet to endorse it with strong evidence, the stories linger in family memory, setting the stage for gentler herbal comforts that would soon follow. Number 23. A cup of chamomile tea was the gentle nightcap found in many 1950s kitchens, especially when sleep proved elusive. Grandmothers favored this floral brew for its calming touch, steeping dried blossoms in a chipped mug just before bed. The ritual was simple, steam rising, hands wrapped around the cup, the world quieting down. As the decades rolled on, store shelves filled with instant cocoa and over-the-counter sleep aids, and the old herbal teas faded from nightly routines. Yet the quiet power of chamomile has drawn new interest from researchers. A 2015 meta-analysis led by Dr. Srivastava reviewed 14 clinical trials and found that daily chamomile tea nudged sleep quality scores up by about 1.3 on the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index, a modest but real improvement for those restless nights. Today, chamomile remains a gentle ally for winding down, its effect subtle but steady, offering a small comfort at the end of the day. And as the kitchen lights dim, another old habit, one that carried the fresh night air through every room, waits to be rediscovered. Open windows at night once defined home routines, letting cool air sweep away the day's stale atmosphere. As central heating and air conditioning took over, this habit faded and homes grew sealed against the outside world. Recent research brings new attention to the practice. In a 2020 study, households that ventilated bedrooms nightly saw a 12% drop in asthma flare-ups among seniors. Improved air quality and fewer allergens are likely at play. The simple act of letting in the night breeze, once just old-fashioned wisdom, now stands backed by science as a quiet boost for indoor health. The weekly handwritten letter once shaped the rhythm of memory and connection in American households. In the 1950s, Sunday afternoons often meant sitting quietly with a favorite pen, folding a sheet of paper, and choosing words with care. Letters carried news of daily chores, family stories, and small details that might otherwise fade. The act of writing, pausing to remember, forming each letter, became a ritual that anchored both mind and heart. By the 1970s, this tradition faded as long-distance calls and television took over. United States Department of Agriculture surveys show that in 1955, nearly half of households wrote a letter each week. By 1975, only 1 in 10 kept up the habit. Today, handwritten letters are rare, replaced by digital messages that rarely linger in memory. Recent research has revisited this lost ritual. In 2021, Dr. Kelly's randomized controlled trial asked older adults to write a weekly letter by hand for 8 weeks. The results showed a small but measurable increase in episodic memory recall. The physical act of gripping a pen and shaping script engaged brain areas that typing does not. Organizing thoughts on paper and recalling shared stories nudged memory circuits in subtle ways. Beyond the cognitive effect, sending and receiving letters offered a sense of connection that digital communication struggles to match. Stacks of old letters tucked away in shoeboxes or cookbooks hold more than nostalgia. They are records of daily life, threads that tie generations together. While science finds only a modest benefit for memory, the sentimental value of a handwritten note endures. The weekly letter remains a reminder that simple acts, a story on paper, a name signed in ink, can carry lasting meaning for memory and for the bonds that hold people close. Across all 25 habits, one pattern stands out. Our grandparents built health around home, ritual, and resourcefulness long before labels or prescriptions. Scientific studies now echo what folk wisdom quietly kept alive. Simple routines, shared meals, and fresh traditions matter more than convenience or packaging ever could. In the rush to modernize, we left behind more than recipes. We lost a blueprint for resilience. Sometimes the best medicine is rediscovering what was never broken. Thanks for joining this journey.